So this is part two for the while loop with this. So let me talk to you about where I'm taking you to this thing to have a discussion in this thing. First of all, in this while loop, I'm going to move over to the notepad so I don't have to deal with this auto statement with this. Well, so let me just move this, kind of bump this thing on the right hand side over here, and I'm going to put this one on both sides like this so you can see what I'm talking about. If I was going to code this, whether it's for C++ or Java, it doesn't really matter at this time now. We're just doing just some silly coding with it as well. Assume that you have your skeleton in there. What I'd like to do is, you need to initialize some of these values with it. Here's what I would do in this case. You would just do something like a double with a balance of, you have to initialize this thing to a 0, okay, because it's accumulating, it's adding to it. And you're going to do something along that line, some initialization with this thing. And then you got to do a while. In your while loop, what are you testing for? You're testing is the balance. And what's the balance less for? Equal to, what's your target, your constant with this thing, right? If that's the case, you're going to actually come in and you're going to actually ask tell them to do something with this thing. Well, I want it to actually do what? Well, guess what? I'm going to do this in one line, one shot in this thing. The interest rate of this thing is what? You take the balance, you multiply that with what? I assume that this is a constant. I'm going to divide it by 100. In this case, it's what? I think it's 5%, right? So all of this right here is going to equal what? This is all going to equal the interest rate, right? But I'm going to go ahead and do this in one shot. I could do this as interest rate. Okay, interest. With this, that equals that. Okay, can you see that? So this right here is a line that I just did, and the other ones you can actually, you have to add the balance to the interest rate, right? So, but the balance needs to be 0 because it needs to be accumulated in this thing. So the interest that you gain from this thing, and when does this thing is going to be equal to what? To the left hand side is your new balance. Agree? Okay, so you kind of got, this is basically the gist of this problem that we just looked at right here. So initialize it to, and you're going to figure out how many. This particular is if the condition never becomes an infinite loop in this thing. And this is, you don't want this thing to come into this thing. So the balance, I said the balance is 10,000. Your goal is to be 20,000. It's going to enter this thing until the balance becomes what? 20,000. It just falls out as false. It exits out from this loop with it. Okay, that's the nuts and bolts for this one right here. Now, hold on. Now, one more thing that you have to realize in this problem is what? Well, if you look at this right here, what am I looking for? I'm looking for is the interest rate, as the interest rate is going to remain fixed with this is 5%, but this column that I have for the balance is going to increase. The last number in this is going to need to be incremented, right? So for me to do that, I need to go into this code right here, somewhere in this code right here, more like right here, right before this line right here, that I'm about to do, is I need to increment the year. So what am I doing? I can do year equal year plus 1. Okay, so I add 1 to that year with it. You see what I'm trying to get at? Now again, if I had to do this properly, I have to go up here and declare year is equal to 0. Okay, but that's beyond above. And let me just do another short. What's another way I could write this thing? Year what? Plus plus. Okay, that's the computer science way. Another way of writing add 1 to year. And when you do this, you add. Let's take a look at this thing. What if we did this? I'm going to use this thing on the right hand side over here. Let me just come over this, what's called this table that I just created. I'm going to insert in some few cells in this thing. Alright, below, let's do, let's add a few of these cells in here so we can actually, below the row, with this thing. Okay, so now, let's take a look at this thing. So you have a balance of 10,000, you have a year of 0. Agree? Now, let's increment this thing, execute the statement with this thing. Now the balance becomes what? Year. Your balance becomes, if you plug this in and you add the interest rate of this thing, you have is basically $10,500. Okay, once you click on and see when your first year iteration from this thing. So your balance interest rate divided by this, add it is your interest rate, and you're adding 5% is a lot. So is it 5%? I think I said it's 5%, right? In this case, it's 5 or 50%. What did I say? 50. It's 5% interest rate. Okay, with this. So you add this up, it's going to be like $10,500, right? And it's going to accumulate this thing as you build this thing. That's only for year one. Okay, so you kind of divide this in. This is your interest rate. Add. That's your new balance, right? Again, this remains. This column is all 5% right here, right? Coming into this thing, the condition is still true with it because you are $10,500 with this, and you're still doing this for multiple years. And you do this, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, and all the way down to, I'm just going to do dot, dot, dot. Let's do year 15 out of this thing. All right. So if you plug in year 15, where the 20,000 now, okay, is becoming 20,78928. Okay, which exceeds the 20,000 is your target up here. Okay, that just exits out your entire problem with it. Okay, so that's how you kind of figure out the number of iteration with this thing. Okay.